Let's use this UAV data set with its multiple stockpiles as a quick little demonstration of how to do a stockpile volume from point cloud data. Let's focus in on this particular stockpile. So I'll set up a clip just to include that area. That'll make it easier to work with. Now, what we want to do is two things. We're going to use the points on grid tool to generate some points to represent bare earth, and we're also going to use a 3D polyline to define the ground surface at the base of that stockpile. And we're going to use those two types of data to create both a top and a bottom surface, and as a final step we'll subtract those two surfaces from each other, and that'll give us a cut and fill volume. So the points on grid tool. First thing that we want to do is go into the grid settings, and I'd like to do a 1 unit size grid elevation sampling. So I'll set my grid to 1 by 1. Next, we're going to go into the points on grid tool, and I'm going to define a fence. Now, what I'll do is I'll make it a polyline fence or a polygon fence, because that way we're only sampling in the stockpile, and then I'll have less cleanup to do around the perimeter of the stockpile when it comes time to build some surfaces. When you're finished, you hit enter. Okay, and so now what I want to do is I would like the routine to search for the lowest point in a, let's make it a 0.5 radius around each one of the grid intersection points. So I'll call for a preview. And there we get a little sampling of the points that will be created if I'm happy with the result. I am happy with the result, so I'm going to hit place points, and what it's going to do is draw new point nodes on my current layer, which is the surface points layer. Okay, the points are now created. I'll turn off the grid to make this easier to see. And let's just look at things sideways, because now what I need to do is use my node snaps, and I'm going to draw a 3D polyline. So let's go to Draw 3D, 3D polyline, and let's make sure that I've got my brakes layer set to current. Okay, and let's start drawing a 3D polyline, and it's going to be at the base of the stockpile. And what I have to do is make sure that I've got my node snap on, and you'll see that it's actually snapping right to point cloud points, or the node points. In either case, they'll represent the point cloud. I just have to watch that icon. What the node snap will do is when you're moving your mouse, you notice how it doesn't grab anything, but when you slow down, then it shows you that it's snapping to a point. Alright, and I'll work my way around. This is so much faster than doing it in the field. Get close, and when I'm finished, just close the shape. Okay, so let's turn off the point cloud, toggle it off here, and let's inspect our results. Good, so it looks like we've got some nice white points to represent the top of the surface, and we've got the blue line to represent the base of the surface. I think I'll do a little bit of cleanup here before I go on, just to get rid of these extra point nodes. Okay, and so now we've got things into a state where I can create a top surface and a bottom surface, and then we'll subtract the two. So we're going to go over to the Model ribbon, and I'm going to go to Extract to Surface. Okay, so let's start off by making the top surface. I'll give it a name. Okay, and at this point the top surface needs to consist of both the polyline at the base of the stockpile and all of the point nodes that represent the top surface. So I'll window in everything and I hit enter. Next I'm going to extract breaks. So I'll pick on that, and so here I'm going to add it to that top surface that I've already created. I'll say OK. And so here, if I had any break lines drawn in addition to this line, I would be picking them, and I'd hit enter. And that way it'll honor any specific breaks. So we've created one surface, and now what I want to do is create another surface. Back to Extract to Surface, and this time it's bottom. Okay, and for the bottom surface, we only want to create the polyline. I'll select that, right-click to enter, and now I think we've got our surfaces built. I'm going to turn things on the side here, and now we're at the stage where we're going to inspect our surfaces to make sure that they're accurate by drawing a 10. I'll hit 10. Here it's offering to draw the bottom 10, and I'll hit enter to select that one, and I'll just ask to show it. And that looks pretty typical. You can see that the surface has been derived just from the edge, and it's essentially flat in between. Do a little regen here, and let's do another 10 to show what the top surface looks like. So here it's defaulting to bottom. I'm going to hit S to select the top surface. Again, it asks, do I want to draw it or show it? I just want to show it. There we go. I'm also happy with that. It's giving me an accurate overview of what the surface would look like. Okay, now we have two surfaces in memory, and we're ready to do a volumes report. So in this case, we're going to pick a surface volume. The surface volume method is one that is typically used for either a stockpile scenario or perhaps a tailings pond scenario, where you've got a common perimeter around all the surfaces. If later on you're comparing unlike surfaces, for example, maybe you're flying an aggregate pile every couple of months and your client is asking you for an overall volume calculation, then you'd be looking at area volumes, and that's for a different topic. Let's go to surface volume. So the surface volume dialog allows us to select two surfaces to compute a volume between, and as a general rule of thumb, you want to pick sort of future as your first surface and past as your second surface, or it might be older and newer. And what that'll give you is a positive volume number for fill and a negative volume number for cut. So top minus bottom, I pick on OK, and then I watch down in the command line here. I'll drag that open, and there's our volume report, and we can cut and paste that into an email or a text document to report what the volume is. Thanks so much for your interest in this topic.